Jennifer, will you take roll call, please?
Tom McDonald,
Here.
Len Tootieth, Jennifer Finley. Here. Jim Molitaire,
Here.
Carol Langford, Danielle Matt, Bing Matt, James Steele Jr., Martin Charlo,
Present.
Mike Dolson,
I'm here.
and James Steele is running late. He should be here any minute.
Okay, thank you. And as we always do, we'll start with a prayer. I'll start this morning. Creator, in your all-powerful, all-knowing, and especially all-loving way, bless us as we do the work of our tribe today. Always hold in your hands all those who have lost loved ones, all those who are in the forefront of any sort of disaster. Think of our children. Thank you for all the wonderful resources that you give us every day, and keep people safe on the roads. We ask this in your name. Amen. We got a couple set of minutes to go to. What do we have? January 4th. We could look at those minutes. We have a motion to accept the minutes with corrections for January 4th by Len. Second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Any other discussion? Any more amendments? All in favor? We got, James, did you? Yeah. Got 9-4 and one abstention. Morton? What's that? A second set of minutes from January 5th. Yes, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion to approve the January 5th Tribal Quarterly Council minutes with corrections.
Thank you, Tom. Do I have a second? Second by Jimmy. Any corrections? Other discussion? Got a question? No. Martin and Bing were checking something out.
There's just a typo in one of the comments. Abby on page 11, and Gwen Nicholson's comment, about halfway through, instead of Gwen, it says when, probably the third sentence, I think, fourth sentence. It starts off, it should say Gwen wants to bring good things back to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. All in favor? James, you got a vote? It's like unanimous. With that, we have an agenda for today. Do we have any additions to the agenda? Jennifer?
One walk-in.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, I have an issue for executive and I have an issue, in open session.
Thank you. Anybody? Carol?
Have the follow-up on Patricia Hibbler on the applications for elders and that stuff that came up at the quarterly. I wanna get moving on it. Want to report.
Thank you, Carol. James?
Yeah, and I have a couple issues. None of them are executive session.
Tom?
Yeah, I have one. I think it would be open session. I do want to follow up with one of the items we talked about at the chairs meeting. That might be executive.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lynn. One for open. If there aren't any more, I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda with those additions.
So moved.
Motion by James, second by Martin. All in favor? Well, we'll start with the first walk-in.
For Louise Mitchell.
Come up, Louise. Join us. Happy New Year.
How are you all today? Congratulations to all you newly elected and chair. That's kind of a big deal. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, so my concern here today is about the low election turnout. And I have question about how are our voting members able to see who's voting, not only in their poll places, but by mail? And like census and survey, so you can go and see numbers about how many people voted, where they voted, and how they voted. Does our tribe do that? Where do we find those numbers?
Usually there's a chart that is actually published in the paper at one time. Jennifer?
Yeah, it's on the final cert that went out as soon as you five signed it. It shows where everybody voted, shows the contested votes, and shows the absentee. Maybe we need to change
Where
it
is
for
the chart?
contested. It went out as soon as we got done tallying.
How? Where?
I mean, we can send it out again for
Like through email or how?
email, Facebook,
I don't
Everywhere.
Facebook. I don't do social media.
It was on the Charcusa website.
It not in the printed paper
I'm
though?
not sure if we had it. in
Cause
the
you know, a lot of people don't have access to internet still.
But if we need to change the contested one, because like somebody that's from Ronan stopping before they went to the Grizz game at Arlee, maybe that kind of information we could get, but the absentee votes, you want literally,
Yeah, I think it should be transparent.
but we can do that, but
Yeah.
it'll take longer on the certification day because we're gonna have to sit there, like how you guys went through those 250 absentees. We're gonna have to put each district of Ronan, Polson, Pablo, and then put those absentee numbers in the chart. We can do that 2 years from now.
But it's obtainable, it's doable, right?
It's definitely doable because every
Yeah.
voter is identified as they vote,
Well,
whether it's in district or out of district, everybody is identified.
and just looking at the numbers, all you as council representatives should be concerned too, because you're not even getting a quarter of the representation of the people you represent in the numbers that turn out to vote. I think you should start asking people in your districts, why? What can I do to help you have faith in council again? I feel there's a lack of that. I think integrity is a part of that. Government is interesting and I love it, but it is complicated and difficult. So it needs to be explained sometimes in layman's terms. And I feel like as representatives, that's part of your job to do that. Walk the walk, talk the talk, be a good human, and know you're on the clock 24/7, not just Tuesdays and Thursdays.
The question?
Jennifer?
Um, did you not see no information out?
I
on-
didn't,
I mean, there was a chance for you to be a extra judge, that you could have been here at all of their election board meetings.
I
It's
have,
also up to you as a tribal member to sign up for that kind of stuff.
I would love to. I do
Well, we like-
volunteer as an electoral judge for like Maine elections in
Well,
Lake
I mean, we
County
need a
in
judge for our
San Ignacio.
tribal elections, and
I
that
would
went out,
love to do that.
that went
Jen.
out, I sent that out personally, because I do that, I sent it out 5 times. And I still didn't get people to be election judges.
Mm.
So it's also you as a tribal member.
Well, I do read my Charcusta and I don't social media. I was probably not an employee at the time, so I didn't receive an employee email.
It is available. Jennifer?
Thank you. I just want to say something in Louise's defense. Louise is a single mother who works full-time. And when you're a single mother, like I raised my kids as a single mother and I worked full-time. Doing extra things isn't always an option when you don't have childcare. So I think rather than chastising our membership, single mothers especially, for not doing even more, I don't agree with that. And what she's asking for, I think, is not out of line. Thank you.
Hi there, Carol and James.
Yeah, Louise, I appreciate you coming in, and I really think it would be helpful that we have a document so I understand exactly what you're asking, because I'm not clear in my head. And I know the certification and all that stuff goes out, but, and I agree, the Charcusta should have that stuff, and when it's election time, it should have election stuff all the time, constantly, front page. It doesn't have to be looking for it on the back page, where's the polls, this and that. So, yeah, totally agree with you. And I think this council and every councils in the past have tried to do whatever we can to get more information out. And it just, communication in this organization is tough because it's so broad, so wide, and so technical at times. You just can't get it all. And one person can't do it. I finally realized that one person, it's impossible for one person to know everything, unless you were like a Mickey Pablo way back in the day when really knew stuff. But yeah, so yeah, I appreciate you so much coming in and asking, because you're right. If it's not in layman's terms and we don't hear it, it's like it's okay. So thank you.
James?
Yeah, thank you, Louise, for coming in. The low turnout is not just a tribal election thing, it's across the board. I mean, you know, the federal elections are dealing with, and as you well know, working in the state and federal election system, it's just a general across the board, people not showing interest in the government unless it's a hot button issue. And then you'll have people coming out of the woodwork to vote. One of the things that we need to really be thinking about is newspapers are going out of business. The Missoulian has quit delivering papers to people. They're slowly going away from the print media. And so we're going to be having to think about what to do differently with the Charcusta. I think the website needs to be boosted and updated and revamped to a modern looking website. It's a bit dated. You compare it to other news media websites and it does the job, but it doesn't look great. So that's something we need to consider. And, and the issue of trying to get information out is it's always a struggle because we're going to miss somebody, but we do the best we can. And, sometimes when I looked at Charcusta to try to find the results, I couldn't find them. It was a little bit, front page, I didn't see nothing. And then tried to dig through it and things like that, I couldn't see. But then you get the hard paper and you look at the website and it's like two different editions almost in certain ways. Like you'll see the ads for candidates and such in the hard, but you don't see them in the online. So there definitely those differences, but I definitely hear what you're saying and agree with what you're saying, and we just need to, accommodate the best way we can. So, but thank you for coming and expressing your view.
Yeah, I came in on a spur of a moment decision, so I'm a little erratic. I'm a little emotional. I just ask that you all do better because the people you're representing are hurting and people are upset and they're showing that by not voting. And I think it's a huge concern. And I will be back. I will be better well rested for one thing. And I plan on forming a few organizations to increase voter turnout. And I would also like to address a few other issues, but I'm going to give some of you an opportunity to show integrity and own up to some of the things people are whispering about. And then we'll go from there. It's kind of cryptid, but I don't want any repercussions either because I have to work and provide for my family.
Thank you, Louise. You know, I always appreciate everything you do since we've been. And I thank you for coming today, and yeah, it is a concern. Low voter turnout, and you gotta recognize it is a choice as well, so. Thank you, Louise. Jennifer.
Next one is an
Yeah,
executive.
thank you.
with
I
Lee
just
Wilder.
wanted to say thanks again for Louise for coming in because this is how things get changed when more tribal members have the courage to speak up. And it's not always easy. It's not easy to sit down physically below everybody and say how you feel on behalf of other people. And I know Louise is a single mom. She's also providing for her elderly mother. And she's working full time and she still took the time to come in here as a concerned tribal member. And I just want to say, I agree that we're not just on council 2 days a week when we're in here. If we're out in the bars doing whatever, that also reflects not only on us personally, but also on the tribe. And I do agree with that. Thank you.
Jen? Okay, so the next walk-in is in the executive? Okay, we do have one other walk-in. Order? Oh, I don't want to get too violent, not too violent. We got Ruth Swaney with Capital Equipment. Come on up, Ruth. Ask Baxton, good to see you.
Yeah.
Good morning, council. Very simple request today on behalf of Tribal Health Department. They are requesting to procure 2 pieces of equipment for physical therapy. Total cost will not exceed $13,000. There's no increase to any budget. It's already available in their American Rescue Plan Act program that they identified. So your approval is needed.
What are the exact pieces of equipment? Just curiosity.
You would ask me that.
Okay, well.
I do know. One is a recumbent type bicycle equipment. I think the brand is New Step. It's deemed as one of the more favored pieces that the patients like to use. And the other is a storage system. It's like a suspension rack that they'll utilize for their weight training equipment, just for more effective use of the equipment itself, and allows for multiple users on a system.
Is this for the Ronan facility?
I could not answer that.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Go motion by, you had something, Carol? Got a second from Carol and a question.
Okay, Ruth, what is the policy on the amount that required come in, or is it just because it's capital equipment out of a certain budget?
In the annual budgeting process, all the capital equipment requests are made at that time. So there's already the funding identified and the justification done. So it's these that are occurring after the budget was already approved for the fiscal year.
Okay,
So then we get that
Okay.
approval, and they do have to have the funding available. We don't go searching for funding to
okay.
buy anything at this time.
So that's the caveat, is it's new.
Right.
It's not.
It's a new
wasn't-
request, correct. Yeah, as much as possible, because equipment is, it's a process to go through for one, and the cost levels and all of that. We're trying to, force departments into having a more proactive and long-term advanced view in their planning for such. So hopefully we'll catch them all up now.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Next up,
Jamie Cahoon is online.
Jamie is online. You're up, Jamie.
Thank you. Good morning, Tribal Council. I am here to present on requesting to hire a part-time PRN person for the retreat. We are in need of about 20 hours coverage up there right now. I'll be hiring her name's Keon, and she's been a CNA for 5 years. Sorry. The request is to hire her prior to her background check coming through. So starting her at the TEA, waiting for her background check to come through, which we anticipate will, because she is a nursing student already at SKC in her senior year. And then so that I can get her started during the next pay period.
Any questions, discussion from council? I guess I do have one question. Do they go through a background check when they're a student at SKC?
It is required. The reason why I know this is because I take SKC nursing students here at Tribal Health, and I help coordinate their clinical hours, and I request the background check from them.
And she's in the process, our process of our background check now?
I have not started yet because I wanted approval from Tribal Council before we proceeded with our personnel office with meeting with Cynthia and starting that process.
So the question is to waive the policy, waiting for her background check to actually get her started. This is at the retreat.
Yes.
Any thoughts? Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, I'd make the motion to approve the request because we have to staff the retreat and the person's already been vetted through the college. So I would make the motion.
Got a motion by Tom and a second by Bing to waive the immediate background check to start this student from SKC at the retreat and get our background check process going.
Yep, immediately. Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Other thoughts? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Have a great day.
We got a question for you, Jamie.
Jamie, what happened to the building in Polson? Is that still being vetted through the maintenance process or?
We were waiting for the building audit, I do believe, but we did go tour the building up on the hill on Whitetail. We toured that on Monday as another option. So we're in that process still.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Have a great day, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. We got Seth, non-comp contract approval. Come on up, Seth. Happy New Year.
I have starting on page 4 of your packets, we have a request to enter into, it's a two-part request, one to enter into non-competitive negotiations with a firm to design and provide construction management support for the Placid Creek Headworks and Canal, which are located off the reservation and feed the Jocko Lake reservoirs. It's a failing piece of infrastructure that we're hoping to redesign and bring to a modern standard. We brought these sole source non-competitives in. I brought 3 in before Christmas. I just wanted to encapsulate that we now have 14 engineering firms, different firms working for the tribes on different things. Some are related to Tabby's restoration, but we're getting a very strong sense of the group out there that works on irrigation infrastructure and the costing and the pricing of all of that. So we don't like to bring these non-competitive negotiations in, but we feel like we're getting quite an education and a knowledge base on this. This is not construction. These are engineering firms that do the design work. So today before you, I have a request, and the action items are A and B. A is to execute and approve non-competitive negotiations with McMillan Incorporated to execute a contract to design the Placid Canal Headworks structure and provide construction support. And McMillan designed the Jocko K Canal, and they are designing the North Fork Jocko, and their expertise is to incorporate fisheries facilities into headworks design, whether it's ladders and passage or screening in the canal. So that's why we have them working in these 3 areas. So anyway, that's action request number 1.
Got a question from Carol.
I was going through the documents and it says proof of procurement process. It doesn't look like it's required, but it's probably because it's just in design phase. But also this product that they purchase probably doesn't, it probably doesn't come to Property and Supply and you'll keep ordering it. So that's probably why you don't go through them. Is that correct or?
What the service we're seeking from McMillan is what we call architecture and engineering. The physical, it's the design. It's not a material item. It's the intellectual horsepower that the engineering services. When we go to bid for construction, then that doesn't go through Property and Supply, but it goes through the formal bid and procurement manual. So this is for engineering services.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I knew it was a silly question.
No.
Other questions? I do have one question, Seth. Of your 14 other engineering companies, are any of them wanting to be competitive with a task like this?
We have a very strong sense of cost, and in fact, the next, I have one more non-competitive that'll come into the council in the next few weeks, and we look at the cost for the pricing of each firm, and I knocked that one down $300,000. So we we fairly aggressively try to protect the tribe's economic resources in this. It was a very candid meeting, and we asked them to give us a price, and we didn't accept it, and we beat it back, actually, in that case, $294,000. So we try very hard. If we think a project will benefit from a request for qualifications and proposals, we will do that. But that's a very quite an involved process, yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, you know, that's one thing I do appreciate this, when we have a contractor that's familiar with the landscape. They've designed other features like it in that drainage. Then we're saving money on that learning curve that those engineers would have to do. So there's a reduction in build hours because they're so familiar with the area and they're working on related projects. And so I'm assuming that's part of your negotiation that you're bringing forward.
With this project, it is because they have all the baseline information already and would just roll into it.
James?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess a couple questions. One is, I was trying to read through the deliverables. Basically, when they do all of this work and it's done, we take ownership, we have ownership of this product, right? When they're done with it, we have ownership of it. The other comment or question is, you know, we do a lot of business with a lot of folks, and that's not necessarily particular to this, it's just a general comment. My comment is, you know, when we are spending money with a variety of these folks, and then we find out that they don't like the tribes, but they like the tribe's money, that's a concern to me. And I'm not saying that's this, I'm not saying any of that, I'm just making a general statement. I think as we come across those instances, or when they occur, then we need to keep that in mind whenever a person comes up for a contract or whatever, because I just think that's important. We shouldn't be doing business with people that don't like the tribes, but only like the tribes when they're being paid, when the tribes have money to put towards something. But I know they're quiet about it. They don't want to ruin our relationship with us, but it's nothing with this. It's just a general comment, so.
Sure. These are, there's nothing more plain vanilla than a room full of engineers. So they're very, you know, they're not.
Yeah,
They're not.
so that's just a general concern, and it's nothing to do with this. It's
Yeah,
just
sure.
a comment
We're-
that I have
we're
across
cognizant
the
of
board, so,
As we move.
but I'm glad that you presented all of the information here for us to be able to read ahead of time. And I didn't understand all of it, but I get a good general understanding of what's being asked here. So have you had a motion yet?
I haven't had a motion yet. Daniel has a question.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Question is, as I see phase 1 and phase 2 on here, phase 3 will be developed upon completion of phase 2. How many phases are there to this process?
If often we don't receive these questions and we appreciate it, but so very briefly, when we go through, these projects are extremely challenging because we're working in a river system. Tabby's got one coming up, but what we do is we go through a data collection phase, which is survey and geotechnical. Then we go through what we call a basis of design phase, where we get all the fisheries and irrigation issues out. The lower J Canal has cultural preservation areas that we need to protect. We get all the basis of design out. Then we go through 30% design, 60% design, 90% design, 100% design, and then construction support. As the engineer of record, they have a responsibility to be involved in the construction. And so in this project, the phases will be the data collection phase, the initial design phases to get us to a design, and then construction support. So those are the three phases there. And with all of our firms, we we vary it, but, with the North Fork Jocko, we meet with the engineering team bi-weekly. On this project, it's a little less involved. We're meeting, you know, because they price that, they cost that. We're meeting monthly or three, you know, and part of the reason we like McMillan also is that on our previous two projects, we like working with their team. You know, to Councilmember Steele's comment, they integrate well with our team and understand our sort of non-engineering points of view, but those are the phases for that: data collection, design, construction, support. And we come in with modifications, which I know are also not a favored thing for the council to see, because these projects have a high level of they're difficult, you know, and so there are adaptations that we have to bring to bear on that, because the design alternative may change, and then we have to modify their contract to address an alternative, which is a sort of a precursor to what Tabby's bringing. But that's the phases for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, I got one question, but I'll second James's motion. The question is, for these engineering firms, and after it's built, how long are they on the hook for shared obligation responsibility for a design failure? Or are they?
Well, that's a good question, and they really, they are not necessarily, I mean, we vet, the construction contractors are 1-year warranty of all workmanship. But the engineering firms, we have to get those, when we issue for construction documents, that's where they have to, you know, that's where we release them or indemnify them from responsibility. So that's why we have to be very careful in those steps. So, you know, we haven't encountered it yet, but we hope in a good faith effort that if they have a design flaw and we have a relationship with them, they'll work to address that. And, but no, we don't, that's not a typical business course with them to sort of hold them harmless for a year or more. Yeah.
Thanks, Seth. Just wondering, because it's so unique, and each one's so custom.
Yeah.
I just wonder if it was even possible to even keep them on the hook. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Seth.
Yeah.
And you have my second on James' motion.
Thank you. The second part of the motion is then related to the cost amounts, and we request the council approve a contract with McMillan in the amount of $749,207 to provide design services, permitting support, and construction management through the Placid project. So that's A to Z. So that's the second action item I'd request.
We'll finish up on the first one.
Oh, excuse me. My Robert's
We got a
rules.
motion by
Yeah.
James and a second by Tom, all in favor of non-compete. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. So Seth, and I mentioned this before, but do we put timeframes on these contracts to make sure that they get the deliverables to us a set amount of time?
A big part of the negotiations is the construction schedule. And everything is, yes, their engineering firms are very oriented to construction schedules. We typically, through experience, extend the contract beyond what we think the life of it is, so we don't have to come in and modify just based on time. So the contract may read multiple years, but under the scope of work, we have markers that they hit for schedule, and they slip by a few weeks, and they often slip because of our end of things. Because our team reviews the work. We have a very, very critical eye for this stuff. And so, but yes, they have tight schedules for these projects. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's continue with that vote. All in favor? Unanimous on the non-compete. Now we have a question about the cost. Entertain a motion.
I make the motion.
Paul? You said, how much?
749,207.
To spend $749,207 $49,207 with McMillan. Motion by Tom, second. Second by Jimmy. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to Tabby.
Good morning, members of the council. My name is Tabitha Espinoza, and I'm the Restoration Program Manager for the Division of Engineering for the new folks. I'm here also on a contract issue asking to modify a contract with Dowell Engineering for the Lower Jocko J project. So this project was one of the first ones initiated. Actually, I think Dan Lozar initiated when he was here. And Jace managed the project for a while, and now I'm managing it. And we're getting close. This specific modification basically takes it from, we're at the final design stage. It wraps up a bunch of the details about the procurement package and several details that they're still working on, permitting between MDT and BNSF, and just a lot of details that they've been working on, but they're finalizing that package. And then they'll take us through the bidding phase services. So they'll help us, they'll write the bidding document, help us run the meeting, help us score, vet all the contractors, help us score them, and then make a suggestion of who we select. Sorry, we're on page 44, and then page 55, 54 is more of the scope. You got it there. So the request is to modify, to do modification 3 to this contract to add 99,210.60. And that would take us probably through this spring. And just to let you know, there would be another phase of this project, which is the construction. And we will likely be back to ask for another modification to this contract. So then they would provide those construction phase services to help us with the oversight portion. But this would take us through bidding, basically. So I can answer any questions you have.
Question?
Just a comment. Sorry, it's not directly on this issue, but thinking of generally when we talk about the economic impact of the tribes, here's another example of the dollar impact of the tribes on the economy or wherever these folks are from. And I think at some point it'd be nice to have a demographic study or economic study, whatever the proper term is, for the tribe's economic impact upon our community, Western Montana, et cetera, state of Montana. There was one done years ago by Eleanor Yellowrow, but it's a little bit dated now. It'd be nice to know that for when we're trying to talk to the governor, we're trying to talk to Zinke, we're trying to talk to Danes, we're trying to talk to these folks and our opponents. They will listen. Oh, wait, no, tribe's putting that much economic impact, and that's including this kind of economic impact, it's health dollar impact, it's education impact, it's just all those different things that we do. But that's another example right here, because of our tribe's existence, this impacts these folks that we're working with. So just a general comment.
Go ahead, Seth.
Just point out that Greg Spar, he's putting together our annual expenditures for section 7 and 8 of the settlement as we speak, kind of a tally. So those numbers could be brought to bear for you if you needed them. Yeah. That we're writing the why we spent the money. He's putting the numbers together. That's happening as we speak. Yeah.
Any questions directed at Tabitha's modification? Motion by Carol, make modification 3 to contract number 21-208 with Dowell. Second by Tom. No other questions? Call for the vote. All four? Unanimous. Thank you, Tabitha.
All right, thank you all. Have a good day.
Hey, stay warm out there.
Legal is on their way down. Did you guys want to go in executive? Or your other issues you guys had? Oh, here comes Dan now.
That would be wonderful, Seth, that really would. Yeah. Yeah, just could get together with Jen.
And Dan requested for executive.
We'll go out of normal into executive, or regular into executive. Contract for the biologist. Motion by Martin to move forward with the contract for the, what is it, BIAFWS liaison position? Do I have a
Second.
Second by Tom. All those in favor? God, quite a few, Len. Yeah. Unanimous? Anybody against? Unanimous. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. Appreciate your time as always. Have a good day.
Dan?
Who's all gonna be here next Thursday? I know Mike and Tom are gone. Cause you guys have interviews Thursday, so I just wanted to make sure if we had a quorum.
Is anybody else gonna be gone next Thursday? Cool. That'd be cool. Well. They didn't say they'd be gone, so you'll be here the 18th? Yeah. I know you're headed to DC sometime soon.
We'll be gone, from the 21st through the 24th to Washington DC. And then I'll be gone again from the 12th through the 15th, Washington DC for NCAI.
Yeah, Lynn.
So in addition to that, I will be in Washington DC on the week of February 11th, 12th, 13th for the budget formulation.
Thank you, Lynn. On February. Okay, Carol. Yeah, Amaranth.
Last week.
Okay. Got that? Thanks, Jen. We'll recess for lunch. Regular session. And our next agenda item is the second quarterly meeting for forest plan revision with Carolyn Upton, Katie McDonald. Welcome.
Good afternoon, council. I see, yeah, there's Carolyn, she's on. So just kind of an opener for this is, the second quarter, we've been working with, Forest Service, I almost said USD. Sorry, Carolyn. But working with Forest Service, we've entered an agreement MOU to be a cooperator on their forest plan revision. And it's been going pretty well. A lot of movement, a lot of work in the first and last quarter of last year. So a lot of progress has been made, kind of tapped into our elders groups, all of our resource managers. And now that Katie's in her position, she's kind of taken over the role and lead of trying to help guide some of this consultation moving forward with Lolo and their plan revision. So Katie, if you want to say anything, and then we'll pass it on to Carolyn for an update of the progress.
Yeah, good afternoon, council. Good to be here. even with the snow that we've got going on. As Tony said, you know, we've been working together with the Forest Service. In my previous TIPO position, I've had a lot of experience working with all the surrounding forests, so this was just a same face, little different duties, but knowing the same people, it's been making that transition pretty easy to be able to make sure that we're still talking to the right folks on the Forest Service side, as well as the CSKT side of resource managers, specialists who'd be able to put in meaningful comments, as well as working with both of the culture committees to make sure that we're starting on the right foot. We're in a unique opportunity to help assist the Forest Service with their revision plan, making sure that it matches what CSKT does on our own tribal lands. So been pretty excited to be working with, you know, the same forest for just some very good work that we've got going on. So there we go, Carolyn, I'll leave it up to you.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to make sure to introduce myself and our Deputy Forest Supervisor is also on Teams this morning. So I'm Carolyn Upton, Forest Supervisor for the Lowland National Forest. And I do want to thank you for letting us call in on Zoom today, because we are having bad weather down here as well. And appreciate the flexibility. Jeremy?
Good afternoon, Jeremy Casterson, Deputy Forest Supervisor. Nice to see you again, councilmen and council members. So excited too about some of the work we've been doing already up to this point, and a lot of work still to go moving forward.
Yep. Thank you.
I have a quick question. This is Councilman Steele.
Please.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you. Is that a Idaho Vandals hat?
That it is, sir.
Just teasing Jeremy, so you won't hold it against me if I'm a Grizzlies fan?
Oh, no, I think we need to be friendly rivals,
Okay,
respectful
all right.
rivals.
Just that clarification, thanks.
Okay. That taken care of. I'm the mother of 2 Grizzlies. So anyway, couple things I just wanted to make sure to mention. We're at the stage of our forest plan revision of putting out the proposed action. We're going to put it out to the public. It's a big set of documents. It's a draft plan. There's a bunch of maps, all that stuff. We're putting that out to the public at the end of the month. Katie and Tony and some of the tribal staff should already have it. We're giving it to our cooperators, our cooperating agencies. We have an MOU, as that has been mentioned, with the tribe. So you should already have that just for awareness. These early documents are to make sure that you folks are aware before the public of what's coming, and to see if there's any questions you might have early, anything we can help you understand. Katie and I were going back and forth a little bit yesterday. They're giant documents. Do you have them? Could you find them? They're in a file somewhere. So we just want to make sure that is available to you. And again, if any of the staff have any questions about getting that information, be happy to help. So again, I just wanted to touch base on that. And then about those documents, I've got a little list here that I want to share of all the very, very important work. And I wanted to make sure to thank folks in your staff who have helped us and how they helped us get these documents together, because it is significant. And so I'm going to look at my list here to make sure I get this correctly. So I just wanted to mention that our interdisciplinary team, the team working on the forest plan, has been meeting once a month with tribal representatives, Tony Whisper, Stephen McDonald. Different folks have been present at different meetings. They have been extremely helpful for us as we have crafted up what we call our proposed action. It's a draft plan. And I do want to acknowledge the importance of that work. In addition to that, 2 of our staff, Meg Cirillo on our forest plan team and Justin Moschel, our heritage program manager on the Lolo, have visited with both the culture committees twice on topics related to the forest plan revision. Again, super important for our staff to have an opportunity to listen and talk through some concerns, issues, information, knowledge that you have from those culture committees. So I appreciate that. I also wanted to acknowledge that working with Whisper Mean staff on some of our wildlife issues, we made an important change to our preliminary information. We actually added mountain goats to our species of conservation concern list. In part, probably in a significant part, due to some concerns and conversations that we had with that staff there. Really important to me that we had that opportunity and could make that change. And also, let's see, I'm just checking my list. Some of our forest plan team have been going up to CSKT meetings on where you are working on some of your forest plan issues, natural range of variation, your vegetation conditions, those sorts of things. And so we've been able to sort of share information, you know, cross-pollinate between these two teams, and very thankful for those opportunities as well. Let's see. When you look, or for those folks who are going to look at the forest plan, we've broken the forest plan geographically into what we call geographic areas. They're essentially our districts, or maybe a little bit smaller than a district. They're landscapes. And each one of those landscapes has descriptive information about it. We describe the landscape. We describe important roles for those landscapes and those lands. And in that, we specifically have a piece called Tribal Distinctive Roles. And we got a lot of that information. It was actually written by your staff, led by Sadie Pion. I hope I'm acknowledging that right. Sadie helped bring that all together and wrote several of those pieces that we actually picked up and put in our plan. They are really, really well done, and they have good information. They're a pleasure to read. They read well. They're very informative, and help put those landscapes in context on the Lolo. So I especially wanted to call that out. I also want to acknowledge that our agency, the Forest Service, and our current administration, and the Washington office, and the Department of Agriculture, and our political administration right now, very interested in tribal relations and how we're working together. And our work with CSKT, we're also working with the Nez Perce and Coeur d'Alene tribe and some others. This is very important to them. They ask a lot of questions about this, and I have been, it's been my honor actually to be able to say, here's what we're doing, here's what we're hearing, and really supporting this work that I believe and I see that we're doing together. So I just wanted to share that, this is certainly being noticed, and in a very positive light, and I'm thankful. And that was really the message that I wanted to deliver today, is how much work has been going on, what actually happened to it. You'll see it in the plan. It's being noticed, very appreciated. And maybe I'll just leave it there. Ask Jeremy if he has anything to add, and then I'll be happy to take questions.
Thanks, Carolyn. No, I think you covered it really well. I think a lot of the council might recognize me from when the chief came over. And indeed, I think a lot of good collaboration was discussed there, including some on this plan. And like I said, we've got a lot of more work to do, but hopefully have a really good start. It's been a pleasure working with y'all up to this point.
Well, thank you, Carolyn, Jeremy. Tony, you have any other thoughts? And then council, if there are any questions?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of work and a lot of collaboration with a lot of different departments so far. Like Carolyn is we've been working a lot with the forestry program, looking at our natural range of variability and trying to apply those same tactics, and how the Lolo is actually looking at applying those same tactics, and kind of looking at historical balances and restoration strategy as opposed to a crop and growth and yield analysis. So it's been a good conversation there of really looking at both sides of the fence, both sides of the mountain, really trying to have the same type of strategy and management plan moving forward. So and they've been coming down to our elders meetings and consultation with our elders groups and directors quite a bit to really, it's been really kind of shocking to the elders that's been happening so far is we've had a few meetings really just to kind of open the eyes of no, we don't know what we're doing yet. We're leading this meeting now and kind of introducing the geographical area, trying to get some more history on it, and then providing input as we build the plan, which is something new and exciting, as opposed to bringing over a finished product and saying, here, review this, let us know if it's good or not. It's building it together. So that's been exciting and a breath of fresh air with Lolo National Forest to be able to do that and partake in that. So I'd like to say, little bit of wind there. Sorry. I like to say we've got to review every document there and partake in every word and every sentence that was laid down. But it is a fairly large document, and a lot of our staff have been getting pulled in many different directions, other agencies and other forests to do a lot of other collaboration projects. But we've had dedicated a lot of time to this and put in some meaningful thought and meaningful consultation and discussions to get some good quality work in there. And, being as a cooperator, it's nice that we get some of these documents in forefront before it's released to public, so we can get one little bit last check in there to make sure it's not disclosing anything we don't want or worded or saying anything in a different way that we thought it would be said. So, and with that, it's, the quick timeline, quick turnaround. I think we're having good progress and good context built into there. But I mean, there's obviously more to do, more to go. So, and there's always this is a draft, and the way we were told, even if we did miss something or if we did feel like we had some more input in some area, that we still had some time. This is still just a proposal and still a draft. And so we tried to hurry up and get a lot of the pieces to the puzzle put in there, but we can refine those pieces as we move forward. So. Sorry, I got distracted again by the wind.
Any council questions or remarks? Sounds like work's going well and quite good work. Appreciate that. Katie, any last words?
Of course. No, I just thought this was a unique opportunity. As we're saying in the past, we've had a lot of documents brought to us and told us how things were going to go. In my previous position, that's a lot of what I would get. 90% of a project or a proposal or action plan was put together. So it was fun and unique to be able to be at the forefront and to be able to get a lot of the other folks from our natural resource departments to be able to put in. I remember in some of the early conversations that I've had with Carolyn and some of the other staff that she has, where I said, why don't we just get our IDT teams to talk to each other to get an idea of what the goal is? Because, here at CSKT, a lot of our specialists for our IDT team, we really lead the way in a lot of different roads and paths that we go representing CSKT as a government. So I think that's why it was an easy option for Lolo National Forest to say, well, geez, let's just match what CSKT is doing. Let's make it easy. We're asking for, insight for their Aboriginal territories and what it means to get folks to be back on the landscape. Let's just work with them. So it's been a lot of fun. I still have a lot of faith that, it's going to be something unique, and I hope making an example for the other Forest Service or the other forests to come to CSKT and do the same thing, work with us, let us help you and you guys help us type of a deal. So I've just been having a lot of fun with it. And like I said, it's nice to be able to be working with people that I had in the past with my TIPO position and Justin Moschel has a lot of experience. He also worked in the Kootenai National Forest years ago as an archaeologist, so it's easy for me to be able to communicate back with him, and he already knows what the expectations are of CSKT with our cultural resources, so it's been relatively easy to just tie things in, just keep the ball rolling.
And so with this MOU, every quarter we'll come give an update. Carolyn, if you want to quickly refresh our memory on the timeline, for you guys' revision.
So I'll just real quick go through the next year. So the proposed action goes out to the public for a 60-day comment period at the end of January. Then we'll start some discussions about alternatives, and we will absolutely be talking with Katie and Tony and staff about alternatives and how do we move into our environmental impact statement. We'll be working on that over the summer. We try and not do a lot of engagements over the summer, let folks have field season and do those kind of things. We'll come back in the fall and we may do some deeper dives on some resource issues that require a little more discussion with partners, with the public. And we'll identify those together and see if we need to do some more work in the fall. Our draft environmental impact statement will come out in about a year from now. So this whole next year really is, we're still before the draft. We're looking at our plan components. We're looking at alternatives, starting to do analysis, and focusing up, where do we want to have that deeper dive? Do we want to talk about some specific issues? And again, maybe in the fall, we'll come back to that and work on that next fall and winter.
And we still plan on, continue engaging with our elders group. Also try to get a tribal member public meeting set up on reservation to get some information and comments that way too, since it is, all of our Aboriginal territory. We've been having talks about that, of when to time that out, and I think this coming fall would probably be the best time.
Okay. Let us know how we can help you with documents, with logistics, with whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, great second quarter report. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, council. Thanks, Carolyn.
Okay, we're going to sign off then. Thank you.
Thanks. See you soon.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Carrie's up.
Cut off or it's gonna be a struggle.
No, I try to be quick. Okay. So, am I ready? Good to go ahead and start, or we?
Yeah, go ahead, Carrie.
Okay.
We definitely will be looking at the weather here soon.
Okay, and I'll go through this quickly, and if there are any questions along the way, please stop me, and we can talk further on different pieces. I'll start with page 73 on your packet today. So today I am presenting our annual regulation updates. So we'll go through kind of all of them. The rest of the regulations all just really have minor date and season changes. We can just walk through those pretty quickly, but the main kind of focus of our regulations this year is going to
be our moose harvest or regulations. We do have some proposed changes to those that are pretty substantive. So I wanted to walk through first sort of the why we are proposing the changes, what the changes are, and then sort of how our program is going to in the future respond to some of the things that we'll talk about today. So the big thing is we really started to notice a big decrease in our annual population trends. So each year we fly a series of different wildlife management units here. So you can see how we have them broken down in the reservation broken down into these different units. And so each year we do fly each of these sections or a majority of these sections for big game counts. And so just to kind of give some context, I'll give you kind of like some 5-year windows. So in the late 90s, kind of 5-year period there, we flew the circled wildlife management areas here, and we detected 64 moose. And again, it's not when we're flying for those areas, we're not getting an overall reservation population. We're just getting sort of a snapshot in time for these different areas, knowing that we're not observing every moose there, but we're getting a percentage that over time you can track. And so we detected 64 moose in that 5-year period. And there was also, we're on the right side there, we're looking at moose or at tribal hunter success. So in that 5-year period, we also had 500 moose harvests by tribal members, but that number is also both on and off regulation moose harvests. Also, just a note that in 2000, council did vote to close cow harvest due to low regional numbers at that time. And so we were starting to notice that decline here, but then also regionally, the state closed some of their hunting districts. And so because we started to see those declines, we did close the cow harvest season to sort of alleviate some of that pressure there and hope, on the population.
Carrie, can I stop you for a second? Is everybody seeing the map that Carrie has? It's on the,
Oh, no. Let me do that. Oh, I have to go
know
to
you don't have
Zoom.
it.
Thank you for that. Here, I'm just talking away. Here we go.
You're
There
seeing
we
what's on
go.
her
Okay.
computer, not on the screen share.
Sorry
Good.
about that. So yeah, here's just our annual surveying areas. And so this is that period between 95 and 2000 that I was talking about. And so you can see which areas we surveyed and kind of the numbers and then the harvest records for that. And then this again is just that note that in 2000 we did start to see that decline. And so because of that, we closed the cow harvest in our regulation. So we are currently, since 2000, have been in a antlered only harvest for moose. So then I was looking at another 5-chunk window, 2011 to 2016, doing that same methodology of surveying. We detected 38 moose. You can see that we are starting to increase the number of wildlife management areas that we're surveying annually, but that we're starting to see that continued decline in moose detections. And then we are, if you look at the harvested moose, starting to see a significant drop in the number of successful tribal member hunters harvesting moose. And again, that number is both on and off reservation harvests. And then looking at 2017 to 21, these wildlife over these areas, we detected again 31 moose, and we're starting to still see that successful harvest number drop there. And then in the last 2 years, we've actually switched to using an infrared surveying system. So it increases our probability of detecting moose on the landscape. Because when we're flying in a helicopter, if they're hiding under like canopies, we're not going to see or detect them. But with that infrared, all it takes is a little leg sticking out. You can pick it up and then you're able to circle that area till you can figure out what species is there. So we are able to really get a better picture of what species are out there. And with that increased detectability, in the last 2 years, we've only detected 7 moose in all of these wildlife management areas. And then in the last 2 years, we've only had 19 tribal members successfully harvest a moose. And to kind of take that like area by area, in Mill Creek up here in this management area, in the past, in the 90s, every year we flew that, we would see 10 to 15 moose during each flight. But in the last 2 years, we've flown that section and we've only seen 1 moose in the last 2 years in that wildlife management area. Historically, every year we flew Hot Springs, we'd see 10 to 14 moose in these surveys. And then in the last 2 years combined, we've only observed 4 moose in this area. And then in Hog Heaven, Oliver Point, and Valley Creek, we would generally see less moose each year in these areas, but we would anticipate seeing 5 to 7 moose each year we flew them. And then in the last 2 years, we've flown these and not detected a moose in either of those units. So I wanted to look at just regionally what the state's numbers were looking like, what their counts were, and how they were allocating hunting tags in the area. So you can see they do have 2 hunting districts that border the reservation that are currently closed to moose hunting, so they don't allocate any harvest permits for moose in these areas. And then the remaining 3 bordering hunting districts, they only allow 1 tag down in the Jocko, just outside the Jocko area there, 4 in the Thompson Creek drainage, and then 3 tags per year up north there. And so again, that's really, they're extremely conservative with those tags in this area because they are starting to see that continued decline as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I know it might be a dumb question, and I really understand that there's probably not a way to gauge it, but, poaching is what's my question. I know there's not, they're not saying, hey, I've got to, but is there any kind of anecdotal evidence as to what that impact is on the moose population?
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. So I have heard of a few cases with the state investigating some poaching off the reservation, but there haven't been on the reservation any indication of poaching for moose. But I have been able to work pretty closely with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks when they do have an investigation, because we want to make sure that our tribal members, I've had them ask it to see if there's been a moose harvest in this drainage, and I'll look and say, well, we did have 1 tribal member harvest there, but they're harboring antlered only. So they were able to determine that that wasn't a poaching case. That poaching case wasn't associated with tribal members. So they do happen, but we haven't documented any on the reservation. And so with that, I wanted to also look at the hunter. Oh,
Got a
go ahead.
question. Bing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I could have waited until you got done. But,
Please.
you was talking about, moose up there in the upper in the Jocko.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that count?
So the Jocko, we haven't flown in quite a while. So we're actually this month doing our surveys, and then we'll cover Jocko and Pistol. And I think, nope, I think the South Missions as well. So we'll be able to cover that area pretty good this year. But we haven't flown that since I think the early 90s. So we didn't have a good representation of what counts or populations were like in Jocko.
Yeah, I was wondering because, we've seen moose up there in the South Fork about, I know 2 or 3 times a year when we go up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're right there from Happy's Crossing up to, I don't know, probably from Happy's Crossing up probably about 2 miles, maybe 3 miles above Happy's Crossing. And they go up into the Belmore Sloughs up there. And so, there are a few in there, and some of them go up into the power line up in there too. Mm-hmm. So that's where they kind of hang around right in that area. A few of them are up there in Liberty Meadows that we've seen, and also in Bulls Meadows up in that country too. So there's a few up there, but you guys got to see.
Yeah, and that's where most of our harvests have come from this year is in the Jocko area, in kind of some of those, yeah, similar drainages. And I think it helps that the harvest off the reservation there by the state is only 1 tag per year, so it does release a lot of pressure from that kind of ecosystem um, in hunting. And I'll get to it a little bit later, but wildfires in that region too also are potentially shifting where they're moving or where they're using the habitat. And so it could be why they're, seen in certain areas more frequently as the wildfire kind of changes available habitat. Them.
Carol?
Could you go back to the Boulder area? I remember, or did you do any reviews on that area? Okay.
Yeah, so last year, so 22 and 23, we did fly that North Mission section there as well as the missions. And in 22, we detected, one moose being, and then in the North Missions, and then and then no detections in 23. Mm-hmm. All right, I'll continue or move over to the hunter success side. So we really wanted to look at how many permits we were allocating and how many of those permits were coming back with successful harvests. And so we looked back at in our records for how many moose permits are distributed annually. And on average, it's between, we permit 300 to 600 tags each year. And so when we couple that with our flight numbers and kind of really seeing that decreased trend in flight numbers, as well as just the decreased drop in hunter success, that's why we really wanted to take a look at our moose for harvest regulations and, really just assess, potentially put some regulations in place to give us time and allow us to success or what's the word I'm looking for? Assess. Yeah, I was like, once I had success in my head, I couldn't get it out. Allow us to assess the current moose population, habitats, and really kind of provide some restoration that would benefit moose. But again, just kind of from our program, looking at those numbers of annual moose tags, with just a really small and shrinking population of moose, it is a concern to have that many tags out potentially each year with that potential hunting pressure each year. And so a lot of these regulations are putting into play or proposing to be put into place to kind of give us some time to figure out what's going on with moose before we unknowingly harvest the last moose on the reservation. And again, just when back in the 90s, about 20% of hunters were successfully harvesting moose. And then in the last 2 years, we've had 2, and then in 22, and then in 23, less than 2% of hunters that have received permits have actually been able to fill them. And so are there any questions on that side of things before I move into the regulations for this year? Okay. And so the first change that we're hoping to make is to designate a hunting season. So currently the regulations go from January 1st to December 31st. And so we're proposing to have that season be from September 1st to March 31st. And what that would do is release some of that pressure of them moving around and adding additive stress to them when the temperatures are getting a little warmer. They kind of have that additive heat stress. And so removing that potential hunting pressure on them during that period. And then another kind of caveat to that is they start losing their antlers. And because we have an antlered only harvest currently, once they drop their antlers, kind of that March timeline, it becomes difficult for a little while at least, to tell male versus female at a distance. And so kind of just to, again, further release pressure from accidental mis-ID on sex there. And then the next big change that we're looking at is kind of similar to our Bighorn Sheep and Ferry Basin permits. Is we we fly annually, and based off of those counts, we set quotas each year. So we come in, we present what our flight counts were, and then we propose harvest quotas there. And so what we're proposing here is something similar, but to also look at trend data and factor that into our harvest quota. So we'd look at this year's flight counts plus the last 6 years flight data to look at trend and to sort of help set that quota, so that if we start seeing increased trends, that data also kind of correlates into what our harvest quota would be as we set it. And then the final piece would be, if we're reducing the amount of permits that we're putting out there, how do we allocate those fairly? And so what we are also then proposing is to do sort of an annual permit drawing system like Ferry Basin and the Bighorn Sheep hunting as well. So it would be that application to put in, you'd get a point each year that would accrue, and then increase that probability of draw each year. And if a tribal member were to be successful in receiving a moose permit, it wouldn't be like the Bighorn Sheep where it's once in a lifetime. Wouldn't have to wait for everybody to receive one before being able to reapply, but it would follow more closely to the Ferry Basin regulations in that part, where after 3 years you would be able to start resubmitting an application for a moose permit. And we did also add this into the regulations. We had already been kind of allowing designated hunters for moose permits, but it wasn't written into the regulations like it is in Ferry Basin and Bighorn Sheep and in the bison. So we wanted to just kind of put those in the regulations so that process was clear. So if folks, were to draw a tag, needed a designated hunter, they'd know what the process was for that in the regulations that they'd pick up. And then this is a form that we have at our office that kind of walks through and allows that permit to be transferred, or not, the permit doesn't get transferred, but to designate a hunter for that. And then I wanted to quickly just touch on what is causing some of these population declines. There has been some research regionally that has looked into some of this, and some of the big pieces and components are loss of habitat. And so whether that's, human encroachment, whether that's roads, whether that's, or not roads, wildfires, that's really changing what habitat is available to the moose and kind of where they're able to be out on the landscape. A big one is parasite and disease increase. So as our winters, and this is a terrible day to say this statement, as our winters are becoming milder, the prevalence for parasites like ticks is really increasing. So we're not seeing that tick die off in the winter like we usually do. And in a lot of the counts off reservation or around the reservation, they're seeing really low calf success rate. So the calves aren't surviving to become young adults and adults. And a lot of that is because of the tick overload. The juveniles just get really heavily inundated with ticks and then aren't able to survive, because what happens is they itch so bad that the hair falls off, and then they just kind of freeze when we do get that cold weather in the winter. Another big concern for them is chronic wasting disease. So we haven't detected CWD on the reservation currently, but we did in 2017 have that moose up in the Libby area that was positive for chronic wasting disease. And then just kind of the different effects of climate change. We have that increased temperature stress, and then that also potential increased predation. So the way that moose avoid predation in the winter is to be able to escape to areas of high, deep snowpack. But when we have don't have that residual or that deep snowpack in those winter months, then they're not as easily able to get away from predators or hunters. And so now that we're also able to drive up to those higher elevations a lot later into the season, we're more likely to be able to come across a moose for that harvest. And so their availability to avoid predation is decreased due to that. And then the last big one is wildfires. So once an area has a wildfire go through it, it takes about 13 to 15 years for moose to be able to really have good quality habitat in those areas. And we've seen that with the hog heaven and the kind of central stuff where we've had those fires in the past. We haven't seen moose coming back in, which is likely why we haven't picked up any in our last couple of years' flights. And then what our program is looking into, so one of our biologists is starting a research project right now to model suitable habitat on the reservation for moose, hopefully to be able to use that to identify habitat that we have that is important to moose, to potentially look at some habitat restoration projects or identify areas of possible moose management, and to really preserve and protect the areas that are remaining that are really important to those moose. And then we'll continue that monitoring. We'll increase our big game counts in the areas where we are concerned about moose or trying to really more closely monitor that trend. And then really coordinate and work more with our hunters on collecting that harvest success data. Because, out of 300 permits, if only, 40 of the hunters were actually out hunting for multiple days at a time, that's really good information for our program as well. And really helps kind of unskew some of those, some of that hunter success and effort data.
Comment, I guess, Mr. Chair. At page 85, your map got accidentally printed upside down
What's that one?
on the regs thing. On
Oh.
the agenda request part. Stuff that was submitted for the agenda request, the packet, the land ownership in the 9-pipe kicking horse area, that.
Oh, in the waterfowl regulations, yeah, I did notice
Yeah.
that. And it comes out all right on, when I pull it up and like print it, but for some reason it did come up
does it?
upside down in the, I thought
Okay,
that was
no,
wonky.
Just want to make sure, no worries.
Oh, thank you. But we did present this to both culture committees yesterday as well and got comments from both of them on it. And then are proposing today to put this out for requesting approval to put this out for public comment. And then we will be putting that out for 30 days and then working and visiting with tribal members that are interested in submitting comment or want to know more about any of the changes that we're proposing in that.
Got a question, Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carrie, so I can understand the severe limitations, restrictions for the reservation population of moose, but when we talk about off the reservation, this is the same program, you're gonna have a drawing for off-reservation harvest?
Yeah, so the thought would be to have that tag, and whoever is successfully draws that tag that year, that would be for on and off reservation. We did think about, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so question is, one of the reasons why the 9 Mile was closed was because that was an area we harvested. So they just said, you know what, we're not gonna harvest any moose there anymore and reserve that for the tribal members to harvest off the reservation in 9 Mile. So I guess if we're gonna restrict our membership other than what we do already with one tag per year for individual, unless they come in and ask for another one, we're gonna do that off the reservation. How does that play into the 600 or 500 or 400 tags the state issues off the reservation? Because I always looked at it as our rights come before state hunters do, and that would be one of those things that would really need to work out, I guess, is what I would look at. If we forego that harvest, then we're giving that to the state.
That's a good point, Mr. Vice Chair. I almost said Chair, sorry, I'm getting used to the change still. That's a great point, and that's something, you know, kind of in the notes, I've heard this presentation a couple times that I've wanted to look at different, options. Wow, that is pretty hard. One of those options is setting the quotas only for on-reservation management areas. It was one I wanted to bring up with the wildlife program. And then also looking at the numbers in between, since some families prefer moose meat over others, that, you know, maybe the year in between drawings that you're eligible may not be 3, may just be 1, because it's not as a popular hunting animal as some of the others. So I think, you know, it's changing that up. But, you know, a lot of the conversation has been on, you know, treaty rights and tribal member rights. And I understand and I agree with you completely that off reservation, those open and unclaimed lands and the animals attached to theirs are a treaty right to the tribe. And there we should not restrict our tribal members to hunt those. But furthermore, if we want to put a quota on reservation to protect our population, that may be the step we take. And that may be something we look at for sure. Like you said, like Carrie said, these are kind of proposed, open for comments. They're definitely not finalized. But that's definitely one comment that I was gonna bring up into them. So, I mean, you know, at the end of this comment period, you know, we want to gather all the information and comments that we've got and then come back to council with here's what we see fits with all of our comments or our strategy moving forward. We may come back to you guys sooner, to kind of brief on if there's anything else too, but, that's a great idea. A long way of saying, I agree, and that's a great idea. Sorry.
And that's definitely something we'll have to coordinate closely with the Fish and Game wardens on too, because I know that it becomes difficult in enforcement. You know, if you have a moose in the back of a truck and you stop a tribal member, where's your permit? Oh, I got it off reservation. There's no way to definitively tell where they got that moose. So it could have been a reservation harvest, not. So we'd have to figure out how to navigate those types of things as well.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, let's see, before Yellowstone bison, I was one of those persons that harvested a moose every year. And, but I made it a point to make my harvest off the reservation. And, cause I had the ability to go farther than a lot of my fellow tribal members here on the res that, you know, maybe couldn't drive all the way up to the Yak or all the way over to Lookout Pass or all the way down to Darby, or over to Wisdom or wherever. They just didn't have that ability. So I think that, and there's a lot of moose in different places. And so it's really sporadic. I mean, it really is. And they move quite a distance, and those places that have been flush with some, you know, good moisture, there's a definite, combination with that and moose over time. As you said, with drought and fire, that's a disturbance. It takes a while for them to come back in. But, I would just be concerned that we would stop a hunt and just say it again, and Tony agrees there, but that if the state's still taking moose and we don't take any, I find that we're losing a treaty right. We're not exercising, and it's not that I want to take the last moose in Montana. By all means, I think it's really, we coordinate that, we talk about it, and we did the program already to say bulls only. That was a major step on our part. For moose conservation. But you know, if it's a hunting district and the state's issuing, you know, 20 moose tags, I don't see any reason why we would ever suppress our members from going to that district and harvesting moose. That's just my point.
And I wonder if there would be potential for having like an on-reservation and an off-reservation, like permit, like, you know, have different quotas there so that you do increase that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how we'd set it up. I don't know if we want to change the wording into this draft right now, or we could take a shot at that even of this quota system and drawing this permitting system refers to on-reservation moose, only. I don't know if we just state that and see how that rolls before we release it. But again, I kind of want to go over, the concept and the need for this is just really to slow down the potential of taking that last moose on the reservation, until we can do some research and some fact finding of seeing what's really going on with our population here. Why is it declining? Why are we having less successful hunts? To really see what we can do to better that population, either by seeing if it's insect or, and I was talking forestry, insects and disease, seeing if it's disease. I've said it for 20 years, insects and disease. But if it's disease, or if it's predation, increased predation, if it's increased human elements, or if it's a decrease in habitat across the reservation, and what we can do to increase that habitat restoration wise, strategy wise. So it's just, we're trying to propose something to give us a little leadway into being able to save that population for future generations. We have a few, and we talked to both culture committees yesterday, and really we got two different consensuses off them. So the first consensus, from one of the groups was that they wanted to see the population saved, more protected, and make sure that the survival of the moose on the reservation is strengthened. The other committee really seen that this was a infringement in treaty rights and tribal member rights, and didn't want to see a permitting, and wanted to see more education to our tribal membership of taking what is needed and hunting traditions and value traditions. And so we're kind of in this mix of
Tony,
where
I'm
do
gonna
we go
interrupt
from
you.
here?
Tony, I'm gonna interrupt you. Go ahead, Jen.
Patricia Crochane was hoping to ask if she can call her drivers in for transit, because they're not able to see the roads, to be safe with everybody, so.
Yeah, I think we're about done for the day, given the weather. Is that sort of the consensus on council? Yeah.
Up for two, and we can let.
So I've got an emergency request from Corky to pull them in because they can't see the roads.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sorry about that, Tony.
No, that's fine. That's, we've seen this coming, so I'm trying to hurry up a little bit. But yeah, and so we're kind of stuck in between there of really what we want to do, but we want to make sure we get tribal member input too. We want to bring this to the leadership to kind of get your blessing, to get tribal member input before any decisions are taken.
Tony, when we look at restoration of an area, let's just talk about Ferry Basin, for example, for the elk. I mean, I remember when I hunted it, there's probably 25 elk left in all of Ferry Basin. The last year we had it open to hunting. Then we closed that area for restoration. I didn't hear, any of our membership police say, hey, I lost a treaty right because I wasn't able to shoot an elk in there. No, you'll still be able to take elk, but in other places. And so I think it's really site specific. I think the more you set up the restoration management units, those areas that, the habitat is altered so much from fire that you need more time for hiding cover or forage spaces to come back. And, they're more, easily spotted and hunted. So, close an area and let it rest. And that's just a safe zone for those moose, but still be able to take moose other places.
Yeah, and that's kind of looking at the wildlife management areas, and kind of looking at the flights and what was detected in there, and then setting quotas for on-reservation management areas.
Yeah, I think really the only place you could maybe harvest them in the future would be the South Fork. But elsewhere, the rest is probably a closure. And we're looking at harvesting moose off the reservation in areas that have a pretty robust population. And it might be that's just it. And it might be a draw for Bing will have to get a draw for the South Fork. And I don't know, it's going to be a hard thing for Bing.
And part of it is we know and we understand that helicopter flights do not pick up every moose. You know, out driving the roads and out hunting, you know, you do see a moose and you do grab a tag every year, just that opportunistic type feel. Like if you see a moose, yeah, I'm gonna take it, you know? You know, and so what we want to also include a little bit here, and we don't know how to set that up yet, is tribal membership community counts. So a notification like, hey, Bing may notify you like, yeah, we seen 3 moose this weekend up in South Fork by Happy's Crossing. And that's some information and data gathering that could be brought to the wildlife program to help add on to the flights instead of just relying on the flight numbers. So, but again, we're trying to figure out some method, some reasoning for the method is we're trying to slow down the harvesting just enough to where we can catch up with our data and figure out what's going on and what we can do to increase the population. And so this was the best first shot we had at it to see, you know, in order for us to be able to put in some motion of research or better counts. So we may need to tweak the wording of some of it in some places, but you know, this is why the comment period is a comment period to work on that.
I just want to, if I may, Mr. Chair, before we leave for the blizzard, I want to, you know, thank you. I mean, part of our protecting our treaty rights is managing these resources and manage them in a way that there's a sustainable population. So I think, you know, I certainly support that. I just don't want to have state harvest above us. And I know that we're good partners with the state. So I think that's what we really need to collaborate on, those other districts, which is really all of Montana where moose hunting is occurring is our Aboriginal territory where we can harvest moose. So I think we really need to manage that and look at how we can utilize that as fulfilling the need for our tribal families that need to harvest a moose.
And that was it for the moose regulations. And then the rest of them just have minor date updates. I don't know if we want to go through each of them, just time.
I don't know that we need to go through for just the dates getting updated. It sounds like there's some work to be done yet on the moose section. So,
Yeah, and we're looking right now for approval to put them out for public comment, the draft that we presented today. And so that would, if approved, go out probably next week to the membership to provide comment for that for the next 30 days.
did everybody get a chance to look through it, and do you have any comments? The one thing I noticed is that if a permit isn't turned back, that you lose the right to get another permit the next year. Is that written wrong now that you're anticipating permits if you get
that's
third year?
Yeah, I think that's a holdover from, that's how it was, but if a permitting process were to be instituted, then that would need to be.
That's written that way in about 10 places, so.
Yeah, and I left it in not to emphasize the point that like, because each permit has that little survey on the back that says where did you hunt, how many days, to really help us get a sense of hunter effort. And so we're really just trying to, right now we don't have any hunters turn those in. So we're just trying to emphasize that that is important to turn in.
Oh, I totally agree with that, but if you can't get another permit for 3 years and it's saying,
That doesn't mean.
wait, if I turn it in, I get another one next year.
True, yeah, no, that makes sense.
I think I'd word that different.
For sure.
Mr. Chair, so part of the process is getting all the public comment on this. And so whatever is going to come forward is probably going to look like a lot different than what you're proposing. So, I mean, we got to stimulate it. We got to get the comments in. And so I would make the motion to approve your draft regulations for public comment to keep the motion going.
Got a motion to move forward? Second, James? All in favor? That's 9-4, and I'm not sure where Jennifer's at. Okay.
It was hard to get posted in a wheel drive car.
There you go. Passes.
Thank you, Chair. And you're absolutely right. This is draft and this will have a lot of conversation around it. So, knowingly that we're putting this draft out without it being finalized and really building, this is the first step in building a regulation or a program around moose. So, you know, and depending on how much public input we get, we may be seeking even more and trying to do some sort of public forum or public questioning to kind of express the needs, the whys, the wants, and make sure we're gathering correct inputs as we move through this process.
Go ahead, Martin.
And we got, well, as you guys know, we got quite a bit of heat on 44D not being, the comment period being publicized well enough. So if we can hit every avenue possible, I don't know if we want to go so far as a mailer, but you know, I want to make sure that tribal members, if they want to comment, have that opportunity to.
And this is kind of the start of that process. We discussed that last year, that we wanted to make sure we have public forums and public comments and not just a written notice of public comments open. Get more in touch with the membership for these regulations that deal with our membership for sure.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would recommend, you know, like maybe a quarter-page article, at least in the Charcusta, on this proposed changes. That way it gets something right there versus just like a legal notice, but you know, like a feature article about it. And that would really help get public comment.
Yeah, and Whisper and I talked this morning about that. And there was even a author who we have in mind for was looking for a story, so we talked about reaching out to her. And then I do have other agenda items, but I don't know if we're getting ready to close. Maybe I should try to get next week.
I think we should recommend that.
The only one being I'm getting ready to submit a comment for a draft EIS that does have a deadline on it. And I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. So the Bridger Teton National Forest is looking at writing a draft EIS for feedlots, ungulate, big game feedlots. They're currently operated now as feedlots, and they're proposing and doing an EIS to continue them as feedlots. And so I was going to submit a comment on behalf of the wildlife program just to reiterate that the feedlots have a really will increase and the EIS and all of that even stated that the feedlots would increase the prevalence of CWD. But the memo, or not the memo, the comment talks both about brucellosis, CWD concerns, and that, we did have our first mule deer detected last fall with CWD in Yellowstone. And so that is where our hunters, are hunting in those Aboriginal treaty areas. And so I wanted to submit a comment just to kind of put those thoughts forward. So if you're okay with that, I was just gonna submit that this week.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, the trophy elk hunting in Wyoming is the sole source cause of brucellosis infecting and radiating out from that point. It's one of the most terrible things in wildlife management. You sit there and you're going to feed wildlife just so hunters can take them. But that's what's been going on in the elk refuge there in Jackson Hole area forever. And me as a wildlife person in that field for a while, I would be I'm totally against the feedlot that they do there. Just caused lots of problems. You concentrate wildlife at that, it just magnifies the transmission of all diseases, and as evidenced by brucellosis. We've tracked that brucellosis in elk have come right from that spot. We've done all the due diligence now. We know that's the source, was the elk feedlots in Wyoming. Yeah, we do. Katie works down there.
And the letter also calls out the impact of that brucellosis transmission to the Yellowstone bison as well in those hunts. So, and I do have it written to either be signed from our wildlife program, or if you'd prefer it come from the council, I have a page for council signature as well. Either way.
Any thoughts on that? I'm perfectly good with it coming from our wildlife team. They're the experts. Consensus on the
Sun's coming out.
out there somewhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie.
Safe travels,
Hey,
everybody.
Tony.
Thank you, council.
And Jordan, say something really quick before you guys adjourn.
No. Come on up.
Hurry up, right, yeah, get up.
In fact, I think he's the guy who's got to do it, doesn't he?
He does.
I believe his contract or whatever needed to get signed today if possible. He had it in there.
It's already out.
Would we be able to go into executive for this one?
Into executive.
Thank you.
Zoom. Still being recorded, so wait a minute. Stop the recording, please. Session.
Yeah, so in open session, I just wanted this to be on the record for the membership. Back in July, I became aware that a non-tribal member had received a contract for $15,000 a month. And I was really disappointed that that happened and how it happened. And I think there's a lack of transparency to the council about such contracts, exorbitant contracts to non-members. And I think there's a lack of transparency to the membership. And I'm worried about something like that happening again. And so I would like to make a motion that all non-tribal member contracts need to come before council. So we're aware of such contracts and it's transparent to the membership. Thank you.
Got a motion on the floor, seconded by Len, that all non-member contracts of any size. What? Non-member contract, yeah.
She's a tribal member.
Well, the motion doesn't necessarily affect some one person. It's that all contracts with non-members come before council is what is on the floor, correct? Go ahead, Daniel.
Is this a specific department issue that's giving these non-member contracts, or is it a tribally wide issue? Are we? Okay.
Yeah, I believe it is tribal wide, and I think that, you know, becoming aware that there was a contract issued to a non-tribal member for $15,000 a month seemed excessive and exorbitant to me. And it made me wonder what other contracts like that are there. I don't know. We don't know because they don't come in front of council anymore. I think the council should know, and I think the membership has a right to know. Thank you.
Other thoughts? Question that I would have is, are there differences in different kinds of contracts that are out there? But the motion is what it is. If there aren't any other discussion, go ahead, Carol.
Are we, I mean, we're talking about one specific person. And so is this just a broad sweep and not knowing all the facts? Clearly.
The remarks were made without the name of any single person. The motion has been made in a very generic, general way. If there isn't any more discussion, we'll call for a vote. All of those for? Len did. Well, hands up again, please. I have to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Unanimous. Anything else before we fight with the wind and the snow? I would, entertain a motion to adjourn for the day. Motion by Len. Second by Tom. We're adjourned.